Hey guys, we are next day after Mary had anointed Jesus. This would have been the day in which the Passover lamb would have been sacrificed. And then that evening they would partake of the Passover meal, which they'd been doing for hundreds of years, where they would eat of the Passover lamb. But this was a reminder that God had delivered them out of Egypt and that he had spared their firstborn. So this would have been Thursday. This very evening we know that he's going to be betrayed and he's going to be falsely tried before the Sanhedrin. And then on Saturday, he would be crucified and buried before the preparation day on Saturday, before sunset, and then resurrected on Sunday. So everything in Mark's account is kind of full steam ahead right to the crucifixion and the resurrection. So I want to pick up our reading in verse 12. Now on the first day of the unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover lamb, his disciples said to him, "Where do you want us to go and prepare, that you may eat the Passover?" And he sent out two of his disciples and said to them, "Go into the city, and a man will meet you, carrying a pitcher of water. Follow him. And wherever he goes in, say to the master of the house, 'The teacher says, where's the guest room in which I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' And then he will show you a large upper room, furnished and prepared. There make ready for us." And so his disciples went out and came into the city and found it just as he had said to them, and they prepared the Passover. Sounds really familiar. Back in chapter 11, remember he had sent the two disciples to go and prepare the colt for the triumphal entry. But this time Jesus is orchestrating the events that's going to lead up to them eating the Passover meal. And he's got all the details down. You go into the city, you're going to find a man carrying a water pitcher. You follow him in whatever house he enters. Here's what you say to the master. And he's going to show you this big upper room that's going to have all the furnishings. And by the way, that was a very common thing. People in the city had rooms prepared for people who are going to be visiting, eating the Passover. But the disciples went, did exactly what he said, and it was exactly as he said. Either Jesus had made some preparations beforehand, or he's sovereign, and he's working providentially here. But either way, I want you to think about it. Jesus knows exactly what's going to happen that evening. You know, if it was me, I would have been very scatterbrained. I don't think I'd be able to get all the details down, but Jesus is very calm, cool, and collected. And he's able to give them these clear instructions, and they went and did exactly as he said, and it was exactly what he said. Let's pick up our reading of verse 17. In the evening, he came with the 12. And now as they sat and ate, Jesus said, "Assuredly I say to you, one of you who eats with me will betray me." And they began to be sorrowful and said to him one by one, "Is it I?" And another said, "Is it I?" And he answered and said to them, "It is one of the 12 who dips with me in the dish." So Jesus is sitting at the table with the 12 and he drops this bomb on them. He says, "One of you is going to betray me." I mean, could you imagine? And they start to be sorrowful in their hearts and they all start asking, "Is it me?" And surely it's not me, is it? And so I'm impressed with three different things about their question. Number one, they said, "Is it me?" And they didn't say, "Is it Judas?" Have you ever known somebody to be a really strong Christian, take some really strong stances on some things, but you come to find out they're living completely opposed to what they're professing? That was Judas. You would have thought, with as horrible as Judas was, that they would have suspected something about him. Number two, they didn't look around and go, "Is it him? Is it him? Is it him?" They said, "Is it me?" Jesus' broad revelation here just kind of caused them to do some introspection in their own hearts. And they're able to recognize their own ability to mess things up. I think we need to do a whole lot more of that with ourselves. And number three, it says one by one they started asking this question. Now I'm assuming that includes Judas here. Could you imagine? I mean, he's about to do one of the most horrible deeds ever done, and yet it's like he has ice in his veins and he's able to fake his way through all of this. In fact, in John's account, when Jesus says, "Go do your deed," they didn't suspect anything of him. I think this is a strong warning for us. He's kind of the poster child of saving face while selling Jesus out. Have we sold Jesus out? Are we selling Jesus out? We can't do that. I'm going to read this last verse and point out a couple things. It says, "The Son of Man indeed goes just as it is written of him, but woe to the man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had never been born." We see a couple things happening here. Number one, God being sovereign and working providentially through Judas, but at the same time, Judas being responsible for his own actions. Jesus says, I'm going to go where I'm supposed to go, where God says I'm going to go, where the Old Testament prophesies that I'm going to go. I'm going to the cross. But woe to the man who betrays me. You know, God is sovereign, but we are still responsible for our own actions. We're going to have to give an account for everything that we do. I think it's a powerful lesson. It's something for us really hard for us to wrap our mind around, but a powerful lesson.